how on earth did you change your mindset or view it in order to climb up out of it?
And we ended up with maybe $100 million of bad loans.
I mean, you're risking bankruptcy at this point,
Everything.
right?
2 of my big competitors just went out of business. So all this was hitting me at one time, and I could not find a way out of it. I mean, it was dark.
Hi, I'm Candy Valentino, and for the last 25 years, I've been building businesses and generating wealth, starting my first business when I was just 19. Since then, I've gone on to build, scale, acquire, and exit businesses, all while investing in real estate and building financial freedom. Now it's all about you and why we're bringing you the real story behind building businesses and generating wealth here at the Candy Valentino Show. All right, guys, welcome back to the Candy Valentino Show. I am so glad that you're tuning in with me today. And I don't normally get very excited to interview many people, but today is not only a treat for you, but it is a treat for me, as I have the absolute honor to interview someone who I admire and look up to, and that is Glenn Stearns. Thank you so much for being here, for coming on the show. I think everything that you've accomplished and who you are as a person is really inspiring. So I really appreciate having you here.
Thanks, Candy. Excited.
And we were talking a little bit before we hit play, and I know you said that you're an open book. And for people who don't know about the incredible journey that you've had, I'd love to just unpack, before Undercover Billionaire, before all of the things that maybe people know you for, I'd love to maybe talk about who you were before. I mean, I don't think a lot of people know that you had a child at 14. My mom had me at 16, so I kind of understand a little bit about the reverse. So can you just share a little bit about your upbringing before you did all the stuff that you're doing?
Sure. To me, I had a very normal childhood. When you look at it from maybe a different perspective, maybe it wasn't quite normal. You know, we lived in a little apartment, bars on the windows. My dad was a printer. My mom cleaned homes and was a grocery checker. So real humble beginnings. They struggled with alcohol and drugs and things. So it wasn't, your maybe typical, regular middle class family, I guess. And, I failed 4th grade. I was dyslexic, so I couldn't read very well. 8th grade, I had a child, so I was 14, right? And then, I just ended up kind of figuring out I didn't want to live the same pattern as the rest of my family and everyone almost that I knew lived. So I thought I wanted to go to college. And so I ended up in college barely because my guidance counselor said I couldn't probably end up in there because I had like straight D's in 11th grade, So I ended up like buckling down, and I got on the honor roll in 12th grade, and they called me a late bloomer and let me go to college. And so I did that, took the old 5-year plan, and I was literally in a bar following still the same patterns as my family. And I was just laughing hysterically at some dumb thing that happened with my friend. He got slapped or a beer thrown on him. I don't remember that. But in the middle of my laugh, I like to say in the middle of my deepest fog, I had my clearest clearest thought, right? Which was, I don't want to do it anymore. It's boring. Like, I don't want to live in a bar in a cave and follow the same pattern, even though I kept slipping into that. And so I thought to myself, I want to go to California, and I told my friend the next day, let's go. And we packed up, drove to California, and kind of stayed for a few days. My friend wanted to go home, and I was like, I think I'm going to stay, and kind of the rest is history.
Where was home prior? Where was that bar that was your tipping point?
I was in Maryland. I grew up in Rockville, Maryland. I was in school in Towson.
Yeah.
And so, up near Baltimore.
So just to unpack, so you've got, you said you graduated, wanted to go to college. You have a 4-year-old at that time, right?
Yeah.
Were you still with mom? Were you still with the mom? Like, how does that work?
Not
when you're
really.
14?
My mom kind of raised her in the day.
Okay.
And then when her mom came home, first after school, but then after work, then they would take her. And then as the years went on, my mom still kind of had her once a week, like just kind of sort of raised, they kind of took a village. Everybody kind of.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I wasn't a father. what I mean by that is I was a young, confused child myself, right? And it was probably until I moved out that, and ended up in California. When I was 24, what was she? She was 10,
Yeah.
right? So when she became 18, and she moved out and stayed with me, and we lived together, and
That's
so
awesome.
we kind of, she came out and just never looked back. She's been in California ever since
Oh, wow.
too.
So you go to California, your buddy leaves, and you're like, I'm going to stay. But you didn't really have a clear path at that point, did you? So what were your next
No.
steps?
Well, what happened was I found myself on a bench in Corona del Mar over the Pacific Ocean, and I was just sitting by myself, kind of like, what am I going to do with my life? And the fast cars and the beautiful homes and people. And I thought, I want to stay in California. And I saw this gentleman, cutting his rose bushes and kind of trimming up. And so I walked up to him in his yard. I said, what did it take to get this house? Like, I know I can do it. What do you do? What did it take?
Mhm.
He's like, Senor, I'm the gardener. He says, I think the man's in real estate. And I was going, I'm going to get into real estate. I had no idea what I was going to do, but I knew I wanted to get into real estate.
Wow.
And so I ended up just really, I became a loan officer.
Okay.
And I started going into the community, finding all the people in the back pages of the philanthropy or that were all on the names in the colleges. And I want to meet them,
Wow.
Can I go to lunch with you? I don't want anything. I just want to talk to you.
Yeah.
I want to get to know why you have such a great reputation, why people admire you, why you're successful. And I did that as my hobby. I just sat with people and tried to learn off of what they had done, right and wrong,
Yeah. So you're reaching out to people, you're meeting people, but I heard a little fact that you were waiting tables even after you were successful and even made your first $1 million. I don't think that's something that, number one, a lot of people would do today. But can you share a little bit about your thought process of why you're still doing that?
Well, the gentleman's name that owned the restaurant was Ivan or Ivan, and they called him Ivan the Terrible, right? I mean, he was a very mean man because he had grown up in the war, back in France, and he was very cheap, probably is the right word. And so he would yell at you and all this, but I never took that personal. I always listened. Don't throw away my butter patty. Cost me a nickel, right? Okay. And so I just became friends with him, even though he was a very, angry man. And after I started doing my own thing and having my own business, he would say, can you come in on Fridays? And I thought, do I want to spend money going out? Or would I rather sit with him? We'd eat a dinner. He'd say, oh, I'm too busy. Can you go and catch some tables? So I'd make a couple $100. I would have a nice dinner with now my friend, right?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't spend it. So it kind of worked out. And I like people. So I enjoyed, hey, how you doing? It just was, I didn't care that, I think, oh, I'm above that. Above what,
Wow. So instead of taking from your bank account, you were adding to your bank account with some
money. And I enjoyed it.
Adding in life, right? And mindset and picking up experience from this guy that had this restaurant. That's fascinating to me. Well, there's obviously been a lot of things that happened from that moment to you starting Stearns Lending. So what happened in that? How long was that you were still doing this? You were trying to find people in the newspaper and starting your own business.
So 10 months after starting as a loan officer, I thought, well, I think I could do this. And so I went and partnered with a gentleman and we started our own company. And one of the first things I could remember, I've got loan officers and they would come in, I'm on the phone and they'd take one of my business cards and they'd write on the back, call me when you're off. Hang on a second. I say, that business card cost me a nickel. It's the same lesson the man would tell me about the butter patty, right? But it was really about knowing that every penny counts, right? And of course I wasn't as mean as he was, but he just had a big, thick shell. And so I started, just gathering loan officers and getting more and more and trying to replace myself, waiting tables, gathering loan officers, bringing the business up. And I realized we're probably never going to be a big lender. So I got into government contracting with HUD. So I started to do title and escrow and audit work. And I got kind of good at that, and it's all relationship driven, right? You talk to a contracting officer. Hey, we got another couple contracts coming up. Oh, could I bid on those? And so we did that. I became the biggest HUD contractor in the country for title work. I then became the biggest HUD contractor for audit work. So I had 2 different companies with HUD doing that. Worked under 4 HUD secretaries and really got to grow in that business. All along, my mortgage company was just kind of chugging along until maybe 2001, when the new HUD secretary, Alfonso Jackson, came in and said, no more large businesses. We want HUD's for the small guy. We want small contractors. That kind of phased me out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I'm now friends with Alfonso, funny enough. We're both in Horatio Alger. But I would tell him, I said, you kicked me out of HUD, you know?
Oh, my gosh.
And
now,
but
how did that change? Did that change drastically, your revenue and everything in your business?
Well, lucky enough, these contracts lasted a couple of years. So some fell off slowly. It wasn't an abrupt, halt. But I knew now I need to focus on my mortgage business.
Yeah.
Which I did.
So you're pivoting.
Exactly.
Right? At that time, did you have teams and employees and everyone you did?
Yeah, we probably had a couple hundred people, maybe. Not that big, but just a smaller mortgage company. And then we started to grow that. And we got a mid-sized company when 07 and 08, the big financial crisis hit.
Yeah.
And so that was
a pivotal moment.
That was it, right?
I'd love to go back before we touch on that, because I think there's a lot. You grew, you're like just 100 or 200 employees. And I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are watching that would love to build something to that level. But I think that in my experience, I found a few things that entrepreneurs are common mistakes. Is there anything that you see that maybe that you did right, or that when you're talking to people that you're thinking that entrepreneurs are missing when they really want to grow something big and take and dominate an industry as you did?
Well, I had a couple friends when I started, when I was that first 10 months as a loan officer. There was 2 other gentlemen that were about my age, and we all started at the same time. We our own businesses, and we were competitive against each other. And that was a good driving force. Can I beat him? And I always knew they were smarter than me. They had it kind of in their bloodline. One, their dad owned the mortgage company, and the other, their mom ran the investor that we sent the loans to. So they really had it in their blood. Yeah. And I knew they were very connected. But what I found as I grew my company, I would empower people. I would allow them to feel it was their own company. I wanted them to grow with me. And my friends would, and when we leave here at night, these loan officers come in and they take copies on the copy machine. They're stealing our ink, and they would think small like that, right? And so they held everything so tight that they weren't allowing themselves to grow, because they had to be the one to check everything. And you have to empower other people. You have to replace yourself, and you have to find people that can cover in your weak spots, right? And so these guys that I know were much smarter than me just didn't have the ability to let loose the reins. And they, didn't fare as well as I did, I guess.
So they might have had a better competitive advantage, right? Because of having maybe an education or some other, like you said, in their blood, but they weren't letting go of the things in order to allow themselves to grow. Do you find yourself that what you did in your journey, or that you think that founders should be doing? Because you mentioned firing yourself, which I love, like being able to let go of certain. Did you intentionally do that? Like, I'm going to fire myself from this job and I'm going to then replace myself in this job. Was that intentional when you were doing that in your build?
Absolutely. I think the one thing I've learned is that ego is a horrible thing to get in your way, right? And so I've always been able to just kind of not take myself that serious, realize I'm not the smartest guy in the room, and find a lot of other people that can, again, balance out, what we need for success. And there's a lot of people that I find that can't allow themselves to have somebody else take the credit, or can't allow themselves to not sit, front and center during everything. I don't like to run the meetings. I love when other people feel it was their idea and it was, and that gives them a sense of pride that they think this is our company. We did this. And that's how you grow a business, right? But if you've got to take the credit and you've got to be the one that's always, looking down, we kind of believe in servant leadership, right? I work for the people that are there every day coming in and giving us, 8-10 hours. And all I am is, how can I help you? What can I do to make your life easier? And enhance our business. And I'm thankful for that. And it's worked.
It's amazing that shift in perception just really can change everything. Now, you alluded to obviously pivoting. You lost those big HUD contracts. Now you've got to pivot and find this whole new vertical in order to make up that revenue so that you can still manage and grow continuously. You come up to 2007, 2008. Anyone that's in real estate or in business knows that what was happening, the crash, it was crazy. So what was going on behind the scenes in your business, and how on earth did you change your mindset or view it in order to climb up out of it?
Well, in my case, I had sold a lot of, the world had changed. So everybody was doing the stated income loans and those, made it real easy. So it was hard to get people that want to give you tax returns. Yeah. Why should I do that? The other guy is not asking for anything. So the whole industry went towards that type of easy loan.
I was investing back then. I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then when loans start to default, the investors are going, hey, I called the borrower and you said he made 10,000 and he says he only makes 5,000. I said, no, it was stated income and he told us it was 10. Well, then it's fraud. Buy the loan back. Oh my God. I'm like, is it my fault or your fault? Well, they piled up on us and we ended up with maybe $100 million of bad loans. Wow. And they said, buy them back. I had class action lawsuits. I had lost 85% of my business because we had tightened up to just do government loans, Fannie, Freddie, and Ginnie Mae, FHA loans, right? That was it. So we got out of everything else. So we only were down to about 15% of the business. The Department of Corporations wanted me to pay back per diem interests, little side thing, but on thousands of loans, audit every loan, go back 5 years. So all this was hitting me at one time and I could not find a way out of it. I mean, it was dark. I would lay in bed going, what am I going to do, right? And so finally, it just dawned on me that I need to face this head on. Mm-hmm. And so I got a clipboard and I wrote down, Bear Stearns, 20 million, Morgan Stanley, whoever, here's all the people that supposedly I owed this money to. Mm-hmm. Then you've got 50,000 square foot in this building. I need 8. I've got class action, on and on and on. And I just went down the list of everybody. I said, can I sit with you? Flew to New York, flew to San Francisco, went to LA. I said, here's an issue. I'd like to deal with it. And if you're going to work with me, I'm going to put a check mark here. And if you're not, pound sand, Glenn, I'm going to put a check mark there. Yeah. And I'm going to just add up my check marks. Mm-hmm. And if I have a lot of them that say pound sand, well, I know what I got to do. Here's the keys. Mm-hmm. Goodbye. If all of you guys say you're going to work with me, I'm going to work my tail off to see what I can do to make it right. And so by the time I got through, every single one said they'll work with us. Wow. Right? And I was
so you flew to every one of them,
everyone.
Had a meeting, and they all said, we'll work with you.
Every single one.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I had 50,000 square feet and I said, I need 8. And they said, we're about the 5th lender in our portfolio that's gone out of business. We know it's not you, it's the industry.
Right, sure.
So we'll give it to you, but you got to be out in like 2 weeks, right? Or whatever, and that's a whole nother funny story, but I'll tell it real quick.
Yes, please. Okay. Otherwise I was going to ask. I was like, you have to unpack it all.
So I have to be out of this building or I have to pay all this money.
50,000 square foot building.
Yeah. And I've got cubicles, like so many cubicles. I don't even, know what I'm doing. Right. And I go to my friends, would you buy these half price? Nobody. We should buy him 50,000, 25,000. Finally, I find a guy for $5,000. I have to pay him to remove my cubicles, brand new cubes. I negotiate him to not to par, right? Like just, you can have him for free. He's got them all down. I'm talking to him. I need him out by tonight. They're going to come and inspect on Monday. And I hear my assistant comes in and says, 2 of my big competitors just went out of business. And they were going out every day.
Oh, yeah.
They had if you could look it up, it's still there. I think mortgageimplode.com. It was an implodometer. It had everybody going out of business. And it was, it was just dark days.
Yeah.
So here are the 2 biggest companies that I used to compete against. They're going out same day on a Friday. So I end up, hold those cubes right there. I got an idea. He's like, what? I go, just get rid of them, right? I go in, I negotiate with these guys. I opened 5 offices, November 07. Okay. But I negotiated, and the next week I had to go back and buy my cubicles for $50,000 because I'd given them to the guy and I put them back in the room. My landlord comes to me, what are you doing? I thought you have to be out. I said, I changed my mind. I go, it's all or nothing. I go, I am either going to make it or I'm closing the whole thing down.
I mean, you're risking bankruptcy at this
Everything.
point, right?
Everything. On the belief that these people that I never could have gotten,
Wow.
I said, I'm going to take a chance on them. And then we opened 5 more in 08 offices and then 100 and something in 09, something like that. So.
Wow. So from the sleepless nights of you going through all of this stuff of impending doom, what happened from that moment to your 2 competitors closing that then you just completely changed directions? Was that a mindset shift? Did you see an opportunity? And this was only 16 years ago to think about, which is kind of crazy. It's a long time, but also not a long time in some regards. So what shifted from that, like, oh my gosh, this is over, to then just 24 hours later, you're buying all your cubicles back because you wanted to go all in?
Yeah. Well, I've never been a big herd follower, right? And when you see everybody running, I'm like, why are they running? And usually it's they're running, I should run too, right? And so I knew there's going to be opportunity. I didn't know if my bank account could outlast the time frame, that it was going to take. And that was the big, what if. But I knew that I had an opportunity that people were not looking at because they were just afraid,
Yeah.
And so that, to me, that was exciting. And, it's funny, when I was a young kid, my mom would put my sister and I in the car, usually probably maybe dad had a little too much to drink or something, who knows. And she'd go, let's go, kids, we're going to get lost. We'd drive and we'd end up at some farm and she'd say, oh no, guess what? We're like, we're lost, right? And so it was always really exciting to find our way home. And so I think I was programmed early that you can look at things 2 ways. What's around the corner? Are you afraid? Is it fear? I don't know what's going to get me. Or you could look at it with excitement, right? And like, I can't wait to get around there and see what there is. And so, I've had this excitement in my life, usually I can't wait for the next thing. Who knows what piece of the puzzle we got to find and fit. And, and I think a lot of people are more fear-based, and the ones that aren't usually thrive, right? And they do well. Yeah. And the ones that are usually freeze at times when maybe they could jump into the fire and figure out some things easier and quicker.
I love that. And I think that if everyone listening, if you got nothing else but just that one piece that you shared, that when everyone is doing one thing, where's the opportunity in the alternative? It's like, so you saw everybody running, and instead of running 2, you were like, where's the opportunity if we do something different? And obviously, look what you've created because of just that one perception shift and the way you view problems. That's really what it boils down to. It's the way you view that problem as an opportunity as opposed to keeping you from doing something and running with everybody else.
Yeah.
I love that.
I just don't think fear is, it's a very interesting emotion. It just usually locks us up, right?
Yeah.
I've not had a lot of that in my life for some
You
reason.
used it to motivate you.
Right.
Yeah, which I think is a much powerful way to leverage fear in our benefit.
Right.
So I think that's incredible. Now, from that shifting point, did that become the $1 billion business? Did that become that turning point for you in Stearns Lending?
Yeah. I mean, that took us to, I guess, maybe what year was that? 07, 08, 9, 10. And maybe by 11 or 11, we were doing about $1 billion a month.
Oh my God.
And excuse me. So we were doing maybe $1 billion a month by 11, I think. And then we hit $2 billion a month, maybe another year later.
Wow.
I might have my years off a little bit. I can't remember.
From like
Everything's
staying up at night, thinking that this is the end,
right.
to this close to bankruptcy and being out of money, to then just fast forward to 4 or 5 years later, you're doing 10 figures a month. Like that's so incredible. What can you unpack? Maybe I know there was a lot of growth and a lot of things that you did in there, but what were some of the hurdles? Because it's one thing to start a business. It is a totally different other skill set to build to the level that you've built.
Right.
And I think that's what's so magical about having conversations like this. What it takes to start a business is totally different than what it takes to scale one and then build one that's sustainable.
Exactly.
Are there some of the things that you did intentionally from 2007 to 2012 that you were like, okay, here's what we're going to do to really make this a sustainable company that we can scale?
Yeah. You know, you're exactly right, by the way. I mean, when I think of things like Kickstarter, and I've had so many of my friends, oh, this is the greatest idea. I can't wait. I'm like, the idea is 10%.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And that's wonderful. Now, can they actually execute?
Exactly.
Right? That's a whole different issue.
That's the 95%.
And can they execute at this level? But what about that level?
Exactly.
And they're all different. And so what I found again was we kept replacing ourselves, right? We got to find people who've been to that mountain before. We got to find people that have already done $1 billion a month. And so we kept bringing in good people and saying, okay, now what, right? And just everything changed when we were doing maybe 250 to 500 million. We were a different company. The way we delivered loans, the way we packaged loans, the way we had warehousing and consolidated them, everything became different. Then when we got to $1 billion, different company again. And so we kept realizing, let's not look at it the way we used to do it because we used to do it that way. Yeah. And we would just sit, okay, why do we do it this way? Let's get people in from the outside, consultants and people. What should we be doing that's different now? And we'd end up always sitting and finding another way just to make it a tiny bit better. And again, some people out there will be in their meetings, maybe their board meetings or whatever, and they'll spend 95% talking about all the good things that they do. We'd spend 2% on all the good things and 98% on all the things we're not doing right? And we just want to keep getting better. Yeah. And it was like, okay, let's congratulate ourselves on doing that. One clap, everybody. Okay, move on, right? It's like, it wasn't good enough, and but it wasn't for money. It was the game, right? It was just keep growing, keep getting a little better. And
do you believe the saying that the team that got you to your first million or your first 10 most likely won't be the same team of employees and people that get you to that 100 million or 500 million or $1 billion?
No, I don't. And I thought that. And I brought in some really interesting people at times. And when I looked back, some of the people that had the heart and the soul of our company that done well had just as much ability as some of the other people. And so I might have made a mistake when I took on, brought in a private equity group, a very large one, like the largest in the world. And we started to replace with some of those people. And I don't think it did us any good, actually. Wow. So I thought that way, and then I lived it. And that's one of the reasons I came back and went and did it again, is because I think when you have really good people, you got to allow them to grow as well. And so I kind of had a small regret that, when they came in, the world changed a little bit, and I wished it hadn't. But
I love that, though. I love that you shared that, because I think sometimes people just want to reiterate and regurgitate a piece of information like, oh, you're going to have to switch out your team if you want to go there. But you actually did it. And looking back, you think that there might have been some downside to that.
There was.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. You also had quite a few other obstacles just in your personal life as you were doing all of this. And I know sometimes people always ask, how do you balance having a great marriage and having a family and building this big company, and then just all of the things that life throw your way? Are you okay to share a little bit about the cancer diagnosis that you got and just kind of how that affected life for you?
I mean, again, life happens, right? I mean, and in my case, right when I was hitting my stride, everything was going great. And this has always happened to me, where I start to feel a little invincible. Bam, something would hit me and I realized, okay, I'm not in charge, right? And so when I was really when the company was really doing well, I ended up getting diagnosed with cancer in my throat, base of tongue, I guess you could call it. And that was, oh, it's curable. It's like a 50% cure rate. And I was going, that's a coin toss. That's not cure, right? It ended up being better diagnosis later, but that shook me to realize my priority was my family, right? And so I decided to bring in those groups of people, like I said, got them in, and it changed the culture. And they paid a lot of money. They can do what they want, and they end up making a lot of money. So good for them. But it wasn't about money for me, and I think anybody that chases money doesn't ever get fulfilled. I was really satisfied. I loved what we had and what we did. Cancer, all right, I'm going off. I'm going to go around the world with my family, bought a nice boat. We all went and saw the world together for a while. Brought my ex-wife. She's a teacher. She taught my little girls. And, brought my one son. I have 6 kids. He was a deckhand. We had 16 crew. He was the lowest member on the crew. And we just went and saw the world and loved it, And, but yeah, I was, it was a point of my life where you realized, wow, you got all this money and you could be gone in, a couple months. And so it's a kind of a leveler for, about what's important in your life,
Why do you think that is? Why do you think that just in life in general, like you shared, that people that are trying to just accumulate wealth and the material things and the ego and the significance that they're trying to build, why do you think that they're going after that, and it takes something significant in your life to happen to really shift what's important? Is that just the way, do you think life is supposed to be? Like, is that the settling of it to really make you realize what's important? And is there anything we can teach people to understand that sooner before they get it? See,
it's a double answer I have. I'll speak out of both sides of my mouth. Let's put it that way. When we were in India, when we were in Fiji, I've never seen people happier. And they didn't have anything but a little stick and a little wheel, I mean, they were just little kids and the families and everybody were very happy, but they didn't have a lot. And when I think of what is the most important thing, as I've told my children, I don't care if you work under one of our companies. I want you to be happy, right? That to me, I mean, when you're at the end, you're going to think, did you live a nice life? Did you inspire and did you create and did you help other people, right? And do you feel fulfilled? And so, when I think about being what was important, making money wasn't important, creating jobs, climbing a mountain, all working together to, win the battle. That was fun. That was a game, right? And so we all did it together and we all were a team. And I love that, right? The money part wasn't it, but we were a happy, great company. And so that was important. But if you said, well, why don't you just go live in Jackson Hole, Wyoming and watch the deer every day and the elk? I did it for 7 years. Okay. Luckily I was on one story. I would jump out the window because it was boring to me after a while.
Yeah.
I like the battles.
Yeah.
And I love the problem solving. That's fun, right? But the minute you think, oh my gosh, this one's going to get me, this, the CFPB, the Consumer Finance, they're going to come and shut us down. If you start living in fear again, you've lost, right? But if you live in, this is fun. Yeah, here, come on in, regulators and auditors, and do what and you don't live in fear. It's a great spot to be in. But I don't want to be, and it is not money, but and it's not just being in peace. I want to fight battles, and I want to, bring people together and strategize.
Makes life exciting that way, right?
Exactly.
Everyone thinks when you have a big exit, you're going to go sit at the beach, and that only lasts at least for me, it only lasted a few months. And I was bored again. You mentioned your kids. You have 6 kids. How do you instill a lot of these principles into your kids? Because I see so many people that have a level of success. Their kids don't really have any ambition. They don't have any drive. They're not very happy. Is there anything that you and Mindy or your ex-wife have done that have been very intentional about the way that you've raised your kids?
So many things.
Oh,
yeah. My lawyer wrote a book, and in it, he wrote, for everything we give our kids, we take something away. Oh, and I really believe that, right? We're trying to give them what we didn't have. And then we don't allow them to struggle. We don't allow them to, have this sense of accomplishment. And so it's very true, because we're trying to overcompensate because of what's happened maybe in our lives. And so every time I've seen an opportunity, I laugh, because I've watched my kids, and I can see them, they're about to hit the pole, and I gotta let them hit the pole, right? Because they gotta learn on their own. And so I've witnessed a lot of times. Once my son said, hey, can I go to the New York and Washington, D.C. trip with my kids? With my class. This is in California. And I said, absolutely. When is it? Oh, it's, in May. This is like September. I said, great. I said, well, how much is it? He goes, $2,500. I go, perfect. I go, we'll even pay half, son. He goes, half? How am I going to come up with $1,250? And I said, you got to figure that out. But you got a long time to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so
did he?
We've figured finally, how much do I pay the gardener for grass cutting?
Yeah.
$50. Okay. Every time you cut the grass, you get $50. Okay. He calls me, Dad, I cut the grass. Don't move. I'll be right there. I'd run home from work, miss the spot. Next time, I'm taking $10 off. The next time, 20. The next time, 30. You do a job, you do it right.
So valuable.
He calls me 4 days later or whatever. He was cutting it short, right? And, hey, Dad, I cut the grass. Don't move. Come home, walk the grass with him. Great job, son. Always do a great job. So we go about this. He had to leave $100 in his bank account. That was the deal, right? It's like 2 days before his big trip. He's got all the money plus an extra $500 because it's, he's really done well. He goes and buys a PlayStation or Nintendo or something, and it was like $500. And so he's got the money. He's got the $100 extra, but he forgot about the tax. So now he ends up at he's got like $40 or $55 in his account. And it's the afternoon before he's going on his trip. He goes, Dad, I got all the money. I want to pay you your $1,250. I thought I had the $100, but I didn't pay the tax. I said, I'm really sorry, son. Can't go. I said, we had a deal. The deal is you have to have $100. But Dad, I can cut the grass right now. I said, go cut the grass then. So he goes, cuts the grass. He comes in long face. Dad, it's dark. I couldn't finish. So then can't go. So we had a deal. I'm really sorry. So he goes downstairs. My wife and my daughter both look at me. I'm like, I go downstairs with him, pull open the drawer, grab a flashlight, come with me. I walked with him the rest of that grass with a flashlight. He cut the grass. He ends up going to his trip. He had enough money, and he had to write an essay for the next year. What are you most proud of? He wrote, I'm most proud I paid my way.
Aww.
Now, why would I want to take that away from him?
Right. Wow, that's such a great story. I hope every single parent got that fully. And I don't have a similar story, but my parents were very young when they had me, and I am so proud that I've been able to figure out my way. And I think when we do too much for people, that we really do rob them of that adversity and that pride that you can have, and then it builds on it. Like, he probably thinks he can figure out anything now in life because he was able to figure that out. And what you taught him by keeping his word, like you kept your word, which then makes him keep his word.
That's, to me,
oh my gosh,
integrity, right? That's exactly what it's all about. When we went around the world, like I said, my two daughters, my ex-wife was a teacher. She taught them so well that they could move up a grade because they were, they had been educated enough to move up. So my older daughter, she moved up. My younger daughter wanted to be with her friends. Well, that lasted about 6 months. And then she said, I want to move up. I said, you missed the boat. I'm sorry, you're now in there. And so for the next few years, she's always looking up, always having friends in the next grade. Well, she was in 7th going to 8th. Her friends were in 8th going to 9th. And she says, I want to move up. I said, I want to be in high school with my friends.
Yeah.
I said, I've already told you, you missed that. She goes, no, I can do it. I go, look, you figure it out. If you can figure it out, you can do it. But I'm not helping you. She calls me at work a couple days later. I figured it out. I can go to Futures Academy. I'll do it all summer long. And then, because this was like May, and she wants to go into high school that fall.
Wow. Okay.
I can go to Futures Academy. I'll do it all summer long, and I can make up a grade, and I can go. I said, I'll pay for it. You go. And if you can figure it out and you can do it, I go, I don't know if the high school's going to accept you. That's a whole nother issue. She got her 8th grade done in the summer, went in, applied, got in, and got into 9th grade.
Oh my gosh.
And so to me, I love that about her. That taught her that she can do anything she wants if she puts her mind to it.
It's so powerful. And I really do hope that every parent watching and listening gets that, because I grew up in my dad's garage basically from the time I was 5 till I was 16. He was a mechanic. And so figuring all of that out, I literally do think I could figure out anything. Yeah. But if they wouldn't have just allowed me to kind of figure that out on my own as a child, I probably wouldn't have that here. And that is far more, that will pay more dividends in their bank account over time than any money that you give them as a child. So I love that story. Thank you so much for sharing that. I would love to just talk a little bit about this book, because I think that what you share in here and your story is really going to help a lot of people that are tripping up in that moment of fear. Can you tell me who this book is really for and who you think would find the most value in it?
So I have dedicated it to the underdogs out there, right? I always considered myself an underdog, again, failing 4th grade, wasn't a great year to go backwards. Everybody knows you're not the brightest kid. Do it in kindergarten. Do it in kindergarten. They won't remember. But 4th grade, you remember. And actually, again, I don't regret it, because I now have friends in 4th grade and 5th grade, right? And I ended up, going through that little adversity. But I'd always felt like I was not quite good enough because of the little things that happened. Having a child, and everybody kind of looking down on me a little bit. And, just the little things that happen. We lived literally on the kind of wrong side of the tracks, and so when I think about people that are out there that feel like they can't, that guy can do it because he had a silver spoon, or his parents were this way. Anyone can do anything they want if they just decide they want to try and put it out in the universe. I'm going to be the first in my family to do this. I'm going to, whatever it is, be a business owner. You can do it when you actually believe you can do it. And so a lot of it, the first half the book is talking about a lot of my screw ups. So, I kind of make sure people realize, okay, most people go, gosh, I wasn't as big a screw up as he was, right? So maybe I can do it. And then maybe this last half is more about some of the interesting things that have happened along the way, you know.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And I love, you said something earlier where you said about Kickstarter, like the idea is just 5-10%. It's the implementation.
Right.
You just said something now that made me think about it's like belief. Sometimes the belief is 95% of it, and the skill is the smaller
really
part.
is.
Because if you don't have the belief first, no amount of skill will ever get you there.
It's so
like
true.
I don't know, but I've seen, it's just making me think about a golfer that grew up in the same town as I did, and he was far better. He was around my age, better than any other golfer than you ever saw. Like, and you just knew he was just slated for the PGA. But he didn't believe it.
Right.
And there was another kid in the town around the same age that wasn't as good. He did not have as good of a skill level at all. He didn't have the presence. He was the one that ended up and did the pro or whatever all of that's called. I'm not even sure. But it was like this other guy had the skill, but he didn't have the belief in himself.
Yeah.
So I love that you unpack that. And I also think, obviously, with your level of success, I'd love to just know your thought on this, because contribution is something that I talk about on the show a lot. And I think that a lot of times when we're always trying to focus on what we can get and not what we give, that sometimes we miss the mark of really building a rich life. Is that a key piece of your life, contribution? And what are your thoughts on that?
100%. I just was talking about this last night. I think that when we try to get things, when we ask for things, we're doing it all the wrong way. In my life, it's been about relationships. It's not been transactional. And so to me, the first thing is, hey, how can I make your life a little easier? And when we start to now get to know each other, become friends, I've made your life a little easier. You might want to also work with me. And so whether it's been a contracting officer, whether it's been any kind of person that's out there, when they go, I like that person, I think I want to do business with them, then it becomes a lot easier. But when you're out there and you're like, I'm hungry, I need this loan today. Yeah. Let's get to know each other. It's not authentic. Yeah. And when it's not authentic, and when you become transactional, people aren't that interested in doing business with you, And again, I don't do business necessarily with friends, because I've found that to be an issue sometimes. But when you're in a world when it's, vendor and other people, part of it is you want to work with people you like. Mm-hmm. And so that's a big part of it, I think.
I love that. I do want to make sure right before I'm going to ask you one final question, because I'd love to know your answer to this. And then we're also going to I want to gift your book to some people. So we're going to give them an opportunity to share their best takeaway from this on social. They'll tag us. My team will reach out to them and get there so that we can get your books into more hands, because I know that it's going to be so valuable. But one of the last questions I always ask guests on the show is, let's say tomorrow you woke up and nobody knows who Glenn Stearns is. I keep saying Glenn Stearns. Nobody knows who Glenn Stearns is. And all of the things that you've built are gone. Every dollar in your bank account is gone. The only thing you get is this information in your mind. Nobody's going to pick up your call, very much like Undercover Billionaire.
I was going to say, this sounds like I've already done this, right?
You only get to retain what's up here. What are some of the first things that you would decide to do in order to start to build it all back?
Wow. Watch Undercover Billionaire, because I did this, right? I literally, what you didn't see on that show was I didn't have anywhere to sleep. I was sleeping in the car. So there was an app called couchsurfing.com. And I would go on couch surfing, and I ended up in like 8 different people's couches. And what I loved about it was no one knew who I was. They didn't know I had any kind of success. And we could just sit. All night I sit and talk. The cameras were gone. There was people that thought I was just some guy that wanted to start a business on my own, right? And so I got to do a lot of what you're talking about in real life without the show, just sitting at night with these people. And I really enjoyed, again, because what I found was relationships are all that there is really so important. And I've stressed this maybe too many times, but when you have the ability to really go deep with people, you can change people's lives. I spend a lot of my time with people that I send to MD Anderson. I'm on the board at MD Anderson. I had my cancer treatment there. And it's not about whether I'm trying to get them to work over here and that. It's that I truly care. right? I've got a lady named Maria Mayorga. I did loans for her in 1988. I did loans for her 7 sons. I did loans for her dad. I've done loans a few months ago. I'm at work, and everyone in my work gets all nervous because in my office walks 2 cops that come in, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, these guys just barge into Glenn's office. I'm like, Rudy, how you doing? Is one of her sons, right?
Wow.
And they, and I've been with this family. So it's been about sitting and getting to know people and who they really are and caring. I was just there. She's in a senior living place. I've been to their weddings. They've been to mine. And so you've got to get personal and real and really care. Not do it because, hey, maybe I'll make some money, right? It's because you have to care about people. And when you do that, everything else becomes a lot easier, right? So if I'm sitting there and nobody, knows me, but I've got all this success, I can either be, I'm better than you. You don't know this, but I am actually a very successful person. And by the look of me, maybe you should think I'm a jerk because I am. Or I can really care. And who cares about the money or the stuff? Who are you? Tell me about your life. I want to know about everything about you and get to, hear your stories, because everything is relevant is we're all, what I think I've done that's crazy and amazing. Other people have their own version of that. Maybe it isn't quite, the same, but to them, it's the same, right? It feels just as crazy, And so what is it? And I want to hear about it. And I like it, And so I think it's important to really care about people and get to a place where you want to invest in them.
I love that. How much money did they give you for Undercover Billionaire? Like to start with? Was it $100?
$100.
$100.
Yeah.
Wow. So anyone that did not watch that show, you've got to go back because you'll actually see exactly what you would do in this scenario. $100, and then it was 90 days to a
90
million,
days.
right? And what industry did you pick?
Well, I picked beer, and then that didn't work. So then I ended up making a restaurant.
A restaurant.
Yeah.
Amazing. And then in 90 days, you hit the goal. That's awesome.
Well, that's another story. I'll leave that to them. But I did very well. Let's put it that way.
Great. Everyone go watch that. Find the book, buy the book. I cannot wait to finish reading it. How can we help you? How can we get this book out? Where can everyone find you and learn more about your story?
I think I'm everywhere at Glenn Stearns, like Twitter and whatever the other ones are, right?
Instagram.
Instagram,
yeah.
Thank you. And that's probably where you can
and
find
Amazon, Barnes and Noble.
Oh yeah, I'm all on all those. Yeah, they can find it.
So anyone that you're watching this show, do your biggest takeaway. You can screenshot if it's a podcast or if it's on YouTube. Tag us on Instagram.
Yes.
And the team will find you. The first 10 people, 20 people, we'll just keep giving books out. We'll send you a free copy of the book. Thank you so much for your time, for being here, for just sharing your story with the world. I think everyone should hear what you are about and who you are and how you show up. So I just want to honor that and thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Candy. I appreciate it. I enjoyed it.